Welcome to the Ask Pastor Steve podcast, the place where your questions meet biblical wisdom, prophetic insight, and real-life application. Each episode, Pastor Steve answers questions from viewers and partners around the world, tackling topics on faith, end times, relationships, purpose, and the times we're living in right now. So wherever you're listening from, get ready to lean in, take notes, and receive fresh revelation. Here's Pastor Steve.
Hi, Discover Church family. I have someone that I've been waiting for a long time to introduce to you. I think the knowledge that he has, the experiences that God has given him is going to really bless your socks off. So please just welcome to the studio, Sam Castor. Would you say hello, please?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here, and thank you, Steve, for having me on today.
Really, it's such a pleasure. Out of all the guests that I've had, I'm really looking forward to digging into your knowledge and what you've done. Just a quick summary. I mean, it's too much to summarize, but who you are. You founded a nutraceutical company back in, I'll let you say what year and all that, but decades ago, a nutraceutical company that made global sales of over $500 million. $500 million. Not many Christians have done that. You've also founded a charity called MANNA Relief, and I've had encounters with MANNA Relief, and I want to tell a story about this. You provide 275 million daily servings of nutrition to medically challenged or medically fragile children in over 90 countries. And just quickly, I want to tell you that we would support missionaries and we would encounter your charity providing the MANNA Relief nutrition. And the breakthrough is so amazing, I almost have to hold back and not say so much because one, certain vested interests would try to get you in trouble. Two, people wouldn't believe it. But this is real. This is an absolutely real confirmed story from missionaries in Thailand. They gave tiny little servings, like kiddie servings of what we take as adults in a gummy bear version. And there's like an orphanage where the kids were abandoned because in many countries, when you have parents who have AIDS and the kids have them, the kids either lose the parents or the kids are abandoned. So they were taking this for just a few months, and the doctors would not say, of course, the C word. There's no such thing as cure anything, unless it's a drug. But they said that they tested these kids and they were HIV negative, which is their way of saying they couldn't see it, they couldn't find it. But they would never say that it's cured, and we don't need to say that. But that was one of my encounters with MANNA Relief. Mm-hmm. And just tell us a little bit. I mean, I know that's a startling beginning, but how is it possible? How is that possible? That's supposed to be impossible.
Well, okay, so all these stories revolve around one fact, and that's that the human body was designed to heal itself. That is not the approach of modern medicine. The approach of modern medicine is to manage poor disease conditions and to suppress symptoms. And but there was a discovery made, Steve, in the mid-1980s of a molecule from the fresh gel of the aloe vera plant. It's a polysaccharide. It was called mannan. And the company that discovered it, a pharmaceutical company, stabilized it for the very first time and brought it to market. And their goal was to have it approved as a drug. But it didn't fit into the drug paradigm. What is the drug paradigm? Number one, you have to show that your new drug alters the physiology of a disease process. And mannan does it. What mannan does is it optimizes your immune system's response to everything. In fact, the first patent that was issued from the United States on mannan, a use patent, said mannan is shown to be effective in the treatment of any condition that requires immune system intervention for its resolution. And you say, well, which conditions would those be? And the answer is every condition. There is no condition that doesn't require the immune system's intervention. So that's the uniqueness of this discovery and what it brought to the marketplace of health.
Yeah, and the first thing that you extracted this ace-mannan from is the aloe vera plant, of which there's something like 200 different species.
Yeah, there's one particular species that has a higher level of ace-mannan than all the rest. And that's the species that is grown in Mexico, South America, and that's where they do the extraction process.
So I have a story about that, and then I want to share some scriptures. When I was a little kid, my great-grandmother, she's Irish, lives in New York. She had 5 doctors told her, you got to quit drinking. She drinks a little gin and tonic, every night. She likes corned beef. Mm-hmm. She just, she did the things that at that time, the dietitians didn't want, they didn't want her to have.
Sure.
Now, she started developing skin cancer right around here. And my dad, for some reason, knew enough science to go and get fresh aloe vera. He'd splay it open and he would just stick it on. It's sticky and it would dry, and he would just stick it on. And the doctor said, if she doesn't change her lifestyle, she's going to die. Mm-hmm. Well, I watched the skin cancer disappear on nothing else but aloe vera. Mm-hmm. And she ended up living to 104, and she outlived some of the doctors. So we learned that aloe vera was very important. We just didn't know what was the active ingredient and how would you get it. Like, not everybody is going to get a fresh aloe vera and the right species and the right amount. So you or Carrington found out that the active ingredient is ace-mannan, and it's part of a family of polysaccharides or glyconutrients that are essential to the functioning of the immune system in the human body. Is that a good summary of it?
Yeah, that's good. One thing about ace-mannan that was kind of unique, and the reason that it was able to be patented, is it's a labile molecule. So when you pick the leaf, within about 24 hours, it completely denatures.
Right.
So you could cut a leaf and put it on your forehead like your grandmother did, and it would work. But 24 to 48 hours later, that activity was completely gone. So the pharmaceutical company that discovered ace-mannan discovered not only the molecule, but how to stabilize it. That's what the patents were filed on. And yes, it contains a saccharide, a sugar that is called mannose. And mannose is one of the 8 sugars that your cells use to make cellular words. In other words, how do cells talk to each other? Well, they create a protein, and then on the end of the protein, they put these sugar structures, and that's the language of life. All biological data is transferred within the body through those sugar structures. In mannose, which is in ace-mannan, is the primary sugar in what is called glycoprotein synthesis.
Right. So we're throwing out a lot of words here. I just want to draw back a little bit and let people know, when the moment they hear sugar, mm-hmm. they panic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like fat, there are essential fats and then there's bad fats. Good
Exactly.
fat, bad fat. There are good sugars and there are bad sugars. Mm-hmm. Your table sugar, your cereal sugar, that's going to be bad for you. But there are essential sugars that are called glyconutrients or glycans. Mm-hmm. And there's 8 of them. I can name some: galactose, mannose, glucosamine is one of them, isn't it?
It is.
So people know about glucosamine, but they don't realize it's in a tribe, in a family of chemicals or compounds that are needed for every cell in your body to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah, the structure and function of every cell depends upon these 8 saccharides. And what is unique about them is they don't convert in the body to glucose. So it's like you were saying a minute ago, there's good fats and bad fats. So these 8 saccharides or sugars are necessary and essential, again, for proper communication, structure, function of every cell. And they're not the bad sugars, the one that raise your glucose levels and trigger insulin response and all of that.
So I want to go to the Bible and show you. I personally believe, and I don't know if you'll agree, that what we take, and I've been taking this in some form for the past 23 years, what we take is either manna or as close to manna as you can get. And I'll just read Exodus. Exodus 16 is the first mention of manna, where they're in the desert. They're basically malnourished. They don't have all the nutrients that they'll get in Egypt. They're complaining about it. And in verse 31, it says, and the house of Israel called the name thereof, this substance that God gave, manna. It was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. So something's white. That's exactly what we take, is white. It's called sweet. And yet later on, they'll complain that it was bland. So how can something be sweet and be bland at the same time? Well, I'll name the enhanced version that you've now produced is called Veracel. The ones that I've taken recently, they're not bad tasting. I think, in fact, you've improved the taste, but they were quite bland, and yet chemically they are natural essential sugars. It just describes manna. And what did manna do? It allowed the Israelites to walk around healthy in the wilderness for 40 years. And this substance was so important to their health, it was kept in the Ark of the Covenant in Hebrews 9, verse 4. And then God mentions it again in Revelation 2:17. It's like all the way from beginning to end, he mentions this substance. Like we need to know something about nutrition in the end time, because you know the engineered virus and the pandemic and the things that they will release.
The world is changing fast, and believers need connection, discipleship, and uncensored biblical truth more than ever. Discover Church Online isn't just a digital spot, it's a global church family of believers united in faith, fellowship, and purpose. Through daily prayer gatherings, live Bible studies, and care groups across every time zone, DCO provides real community, encouragement, and support wherever you are in the world. Each week, receive powerful prophetic teaching from Pastor Steve Cicolanti, free from big tech censorship and rooted in God's Word. No matter where in the world, Discover Church Online is always alive and always open. Visit discoverchurch.online and become a member today, or call 1-855-8-LOOK-UP to speak with our team who's here for you.
It says in verse 17, the Lord says, he that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith to the churches. To him that overcometh, I will give to eat of the hidden manna. And I will give to him a white stone, and in the stone a new name written, which no man knows, save he that receives it. So I can't prove it to you, but I have a feeling that we're eating something very close to manna. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, in fact, one of the doctors that first discovered Ace Mannan named the stabilized Ace Mannan Manna Pole. That was the trademark name for it. And so when I licensed that technology and ultimately opened Manna Relief, I used the name Manna because it was modern day manna. And we provide it to medically fragile children all over the world. And we see, you know, the miracle of the human body's capacity to heal itself over and over and over in every situation you can possibly imagine. But yeah, I think it's modern day manna.
So now a lot of people want to claim this. You know, I go around the world and I'll be on some natural organic farm, and they're all good. You know, anything God produced is great. But I was on a farm making spirulina, and this very nice lady said, you know, this is our manna. We found manna. And I said, well, spirulina is green. I don't know that it has, immune system modulating function. It'll be healthy for your gut and things like that. And I take it. I like it, but it doesn't fit the bill. You know, let me read some more scriptures about this. This is what happened when they took manna. Psalm 105:37. He brought them forth. This is during the exodus of the redemption out of Egypt. He brought them forth also with silver and gold, and there was not one feeble person among their tribes. Not one. Okay, that's almost unbelievable. If you go to a church with 50 people, you're going to find a feeble person, a sick person.
Yeah.
But you got 3 million ex-slaves. They just left. They're provided manna. Of course, they have to believe. Faith is involved. You got to mix everything with faith. And the Bible says for 40 years, they're not sick. They lack nothing. Nehemiah 9, verse 21 repeats this. For 40 years, you sustained them in the wilderness. They lack nothing. Their clothes did not wear out, nor did their feet become swollen. I mean, it's miracles, financial miracles, and wellness miracles, all in one. And when people ask me, like, how is that possible? I go back to the fact that I think most of the diseases right now, something like 80 major diseases that people are fighting in America, they're autoimmune diseases.
Correct.
And autoimmune just means one of two things is happening. You have hyper-autoimmunity or hypo-autoimmunity. Hyper is your body's not recognizing something, it's attacking itself, it's overactive. Hypo is, again, the body's not communicating, not recognizing something, so it's underperforming. And then you have things like tumors growing.
Mm-hmm.
So when people come to me and they ask for prayer, of course, I give them the word of God. When my mother had cancer, you know, she's very strong in faith, got on the word of God, but she got on the glycans at the same time. We attacked it spiritually and physically. And so we wanted her cells to see where are these renegade cells that are growing into tumors. And the only way that it can see is through the glycans. It communicates through these essential polysaccharides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I deal with this a lot because I do presentations at ministry conferences. And what I like to tell people is that healing is supernatural. It's the one thing that modern medicine cannot replicate, the body's ability to heal itself.
Right.
And I found there's two things that trigger healing. Number one is prayer, and number two, glyconutrients. Glyconutrients activate the molecular structure of your immune system to go into a mode that can more appropriately deal with whatever is going on in your body. In other words, it optimizes your immune response to everything.
That's awesome. And now you're one of the pioneers of this, and this is why God sends us the best. Walk us through the timeline a little bit. You know, when Carrington Lab found this, when you found Carrington Lab, and then how did you come to MPG, which I've liked MPG. They're a Christian company that provide the fix, you know, the vagus nerve activator.
Right.
But it's just amazing that here we are, you know, 20, 30 years later, everything's come together in this one Christian enterprise. Can you walk us through the timeline?
Yes, I can. So ACE Mannan was discovered in 1985 by a group of research pharmacologists at Southwestern Medical School. A patent was filed on the process to stabilize it. Patents were filed on its various uses. And again, the goal of Carrington Labs, which was the company that was created to commercialize that discovery, was to bring it to market as a drug. But in 1993, the FDA, our Food and Drug Administration, rejected its application, its new drug application, on the basis that it didn't meet the criteria of a drug. It didn't alter physiology, and it wasn't toxic. Believe it or not, you have to prove a toxic level of a drug. And if you can't prove the toxic level, it's not classified as a drug.
Let me pause on that and then explain that. There's a term called LD50. Is that right?
Yeah,
LD50?
every drug has to, in phase 1 studies, you have to establish what's called an LD50. That means lethal dose. And so the way you test for an LD50 is you take your investigative new drug, you inject it in small doses into laboratory mice. You increase the dose until you've killed half the mice. That's called an LD50. Every drug has to show that because all drugs are toxic and they want to know how much is going to kill a human. When they tested ACE Mannan, it's completely non-toxic. So it could not establish an LD50, and that is the main reason it was rejected as a drug. That was 1993. So Carrington had to get the product into the marketplace, they would continue to pursue drug approval for another 15 years unsuccessfully. You know, they were of the opinion that common sense would override bureaucracy, and at some point they'd get it approved, but never happened.
Right.
Anyway, in 1993, they made the first dietary supplement version of Ace Mannan. And I was introduced to Carrington Labs to help them with that project, bring it into the market. But after I saw the science, I asked if I could license it myself. And so through some negotiation, we finally came to an agreement. I licensed it. And to create a new patent, I combined Ace Mannan with other glyconutrient-based polysaccharides and created the first glyconutrient product. And I filed and received about 100 patents around the world on that technology.
Wow.
And that's the nutraceutical company that I took around the world and generated sales up to $500 million a year. But in the process of doing that, Steve, I discovered that this technology was so incredible that you could take it to the world's most vulnerable children and absolutely change their lives. And so in 1999, I created MANNA Relief. And then in 2014, I resigned from the company that made the glyconutrients to spend full time on the pursuit of providing Ace Mannan and Ace Mannan-based products to the world's most vulnerable children through MANNA Relief. That's what I've been doing ever since. And so then in 2025, MPG approached me and they said, we'd like to make a glyconutrient product. And we'd like that product to make a donation to MANNA Relief through what's called a buy one, give one model, which means every time one of those products is sold, a donation is made to MANNA Relief to nourish a child for the same length of time, 30 days. And so that's what we did. And we took a new enhanced version of the Ace Mannan to add to that glyconutrient base, which made it probably 2-3 times better than the original technology that I'd created and filed patents on.
Wow. Wow. That is such a Joseph story. You have a story of a malnourished, sick world, and God gives you something that's a solution ahead of time. But I would say you've been through hell. You've been through hell trying to, persuade people something that is going to help them. You get a lot of enemies, don't you?
Well, I mean, first of all, the modern healthcare is monopolized by the pharmaceutical industry. In other words, that is standard of care. And so anything that promotes health and healing that is not a drug, there's always conflict around it from a regulatory standpoint all over the world. It's not unique to the US or to Australia, it's all over the world. And so, in educating consumers that Ace Mannan doesn't treat anything, it enhances your immune system's response to everything. That's basically the story. And these glyconutrients provide your immune system with the ingredients and your cells with the ingredients they need to run effectively. And, that can be conceived as a threat to modern healthcare. It's just disruptive. It's a disruptive technology that is coming in at a time when billions of people in this world live with one or more chronic conditions that are praying for a solution to their health challenge. And they're not expecting it to come in the form of sugars, right? Like we were talking about a few minutes ago. But that's the magic potion, if you will, that brings your immune system alive and allows you to deal with whatever the world is thrown at you.
I looked it up and I saw that MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, back in 2003, named glycobiology as one of the top 10 technologies that will change the world.
Yeah, and the sugars on the ends of these proteins called glycoproteins, glyco is the Greek word for sugar, They weren't even discovered until the 1990s. And
Wow.
what they realized is that that's the coding of life, these sugar structures. In other words, all biological data is transferred through them, which brought to market a brand new science called glycobiology. And understanding glycobiology and the role it plays in human health is one of, as they said, the 10 technologies that will change the world as we get an understanding, a better understanding of how that functions in human physiology.
One of these scientists that you work with should have gotten a Nobel Peace Prize or a medical prize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think Dr. Bill McAnally, Dr. Reg McDaniel. Dr. Bill McAnally was a research pharmacologist that actually discovered ACE-Mannan. Dr. Reg McDaniel was the medical director of Carrington Labs that did most of the clinical research around it. And, they made a discovery of a molecule in nature and stabilized it for the very first time that absolutely changes the human condition. I don't know anything more worthy of Nobel Prize than that discovery. But again, it's so disruptive to the existing healthcare community that it's outside of the norm.
Well, I went and spoke once at a hospital in Adelaide, and I asked, there were doctors and nurses there, because I'm very interested in health and healing since the beginning of my planting the church. And I asked them, how many hours of nutrition do you get in terms of medical education? And I think they quoted me like 1 day.
Yeah.
Like it's 1 day of curriculum, maybe 8 hours or something like that at most. It's incredible. So then when you're presenting to them something that's natural, that could have this profound effect, and yet it's not toxic, it's not targeting a specific disease, it's like out of their paradigm. They can't even imagine it. But I want to say something nice about, not every country, because you were mentioning that every country in the world, if there's something disruptive, they'll start protecting the pharmaceutical industry. Not every country is like that. Thailand, during COVID, publicly promoted natural herbs that they knew would inhibit the infection, and it had great effect. And there are things like that in all different countries, in Africa, I think in the Middle East, in Asia. But that news was suppressed in the West.
Right.
But that news was not suppressed in Thailand. People knew they could go get something cheap, abundant, and it would protect them. And it gave them very, fewer deaths.
Yeah, and I found that to be true also in MANNA Relief. When I provide ACE-Mannan to medically fragile children in developing nations, they really don't care what the law says anyplace else. They're looking for results. Their kids are sick. For instance, I distributed product into North Korea, and people would say, how does a Christian minister get into North Korea? And I said, heal their children. That's it. It transcends everything. Politics, religion, it doesn't matter. If you're willing to do what is necessary to make an impact on the children in that country, you can go anywhere.
Okay. I want to delve into, that's awesome, by the way. I mean, that's modern missions right there. People like Paul, the apostle, got into places that the rest of the Jewish apostles couldn't get into, because he went in on a different identity. He went in on a business identity. Historically, his family provided the tents for the Roman legions. And so he had favor and open doors in places that other people didn't have.
Imagine walking where Jesus walked, standing on Mount Sinai, experiencing the prophetic significance of Israel firsthand, not as a tourist, but as a disciple. Travel with Pastor Steve Cioccolanti on life-changing faith-based tours to the Holy Land, Jordan, Iceland, Thailand, and beyond. These aren't ordinary tours. They're mentoring journeys designed for prayer, teaching, fellowship, and personal encounters with God in the very places where Scripture comes alive. Pastor Steve has traveled to over 50 nations, and now he invites you to discover God's world with fresh eyes and a deeper understanding of his timeline. Space is limited. Visit travelwithpastorsteve.com to explore upcoming tours and reserve your spot. Come walk the Bible into life.
business is such a great door opener if
Mhm.
you're helping people. And people always ask, where do you get it? How much is it? So at vegaslife.com/Vericell, Vericell is the new technology that's enhanced. It's, you say, 2 to 3 times better than the glycans that we've taken for the past 20 years. And they're so amazing. I'm enjoying it, but it's like a limited supply. We're about to launch it publicly. So I was in the beta group. I'm very grateful and got to taste it, got to use it. So that's where you go, vegaslife.com. And it has all the other stuff, okay? So you need other things. You know, this activates your cellular communication, but you also have a brain and a nervous system that connects to all your organs. And that's where the Vagus activator, Pix, P-H-I-X, also helps in communication. I find if you help the body communicate, it's like a marriage. You have good communication, you're happy. Your communication breaks down, you know, your marriage breaks down. You need to be supporting the communication of your body, and then it kind of takes care of itself. It was designed by God to do that. So back in, this seems like a long time ago, my first encounter with the glycans was back in 2003.
Mhm.
I was a young pastor, fresh out of Bible school, planted the church for about 3 years. And I was teaching divine healing, going to the nations, praying for people. I'd see people healed. But I suddenly felt at around, I guess I'm going to tell my age, I was around 28. I was getting kind of like dizzy spells, faint, just feeling weak for no reason. And I thought I was pretty healthy, health conscious, and I certainly believed in the Bible. But I said, Lord, I started going to the Lord and prayed. I said, how can I be telling other people about your divine healing power? And I'm feeling like this, like sometimes I'm not even wanting to finish preaching. And that was when I encountered the glyconutrients, because I asked. You know, sometimes we don't have because we don't ask. And I encountered it and I realized, okay, maybe my body is just tired from trying to compensate for lack of nutrients, depleted soil, polluted air. All sorts of things are happening around us. It doesn't make us non-Christian. We're still Christian, but we have to deal with all of this going on. So I started taking it, and it was one of those nutrients that I think I needed about a couple of months. You know, some things are like fast, like the Vagus Life Activator is so fast, people start burning fat and things like that. But I found the glyconutrients for me, you need to give it a good 3 to 6 months.
Mhm.
Because your body's incorporating it and your body starts to deal with things that you might not even be aware of. It's dealing with everything from a cellular level. But eventually those symptoms disappear. They haven't come back. I've been on them for 23 years, and now I'm so glad I'm on an enhanced version. My mother had cancer. She was on it, and she beat cancer. That's like 10 years ago. We saw infertile couples. People spend tens of thousands of dollars on trying to get pregnant artificially, and they would just take the glyconutrients and they'd get pregnant. And we thought that wasn't even on the label. That wasn't even one of the promises. But I'm assuming the sperm finds the egg through the glyconutrients. Is that right, Sam?
Exactly right.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
that's
right.
how the sperm finds the egg, is through these glycans. Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, not only does it have no toxic side effects, it has many beneficial side effects that we weren't expecting. We had people with arthritis, lupus, almost any autoimmune disease responded to it because it wasn't targeting any disease. It was modulating your own God-given immune system. So
Correct.
that's how we came into it, and it was just amazing. Then we found out about your wife's book, Linda's Story. Do you want to give a plug to her book?
Sure. The Joseph Company of Provision. Yeah, exactly. Modern Day Joseph Company is the name of it. And that came when, in 1993, before I met Carrington Labs, my wife and I were at a place in our lives where we wanted our businesses to start serving kingdom purposes. And so we just prayed, God, what's next? What would you like us to do? And while we were praying, my wife heard in her spirit the next company that I give you will be a Joseph Company of Provision that will touch the lives of people all over the earth. And a few months later, I was introduced to Carrington Labs and, introduced to Ace Mannon, and then discovered the blend of glyconutrients and patented that. And then today found a way to enhance the Ace Mannon technology about 300% over the original patented technology. And that's what we bring to market. So it is Company of Provision.
I think this is where our stories intersect, because her book about the Joseph Company, and my timeline that the Lord's given me, they're all revolving around the model of Joseph. I believe in the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, that God gave us a very clear timeline. And where we're at is we're about to finish the 7 years of plenty.
Mm-hmm.
So God told me this is going to be a year of abundance. Christians who are awake, alert, they're going to have abundance. They're going to get rich. Why? Because we're to prepare to help people and save people in the next 7 years of famine.
Wow.
And that's the black horse, the green horse.
Mm-hmm.
That Joseph analogy is not just a story. It's a prophetic model. 7 plus 7. You got a 14-year timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And we're living in it right now. And when people were living in the time of abundance, they thought it would never end.
Right.
Only Joseph was given that revelation, plus Pharaoh, and they acted on it. And then everybody found out, hey, you know what? God's word is true. That dream was true.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're really preparing people for something. And people need to be healthy. They need to have a stream of income during the Black Horse so that they can continue to fulfill the Great Commission. So I'm excited about this. I'm so glad that you license your technology to MPG, another great Christian company. It's such a great partnership, great combo.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, since I've got one of the pioneers here, tell us about these ingredients. In Vericell, you've got these active ingredients. Ace Mannon we've talked about, but I'm just going to summarize here. It says, this polysaccharide, Ace Mannon from aloe vera, stimulates or modulates the human immune system by activating innate cells like macrophages, dendritic
cells.
Yep.
Yeah.
Increasing cytokine production,
Mm-hmm.
and enhancing T cell response, supporting antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-tumor effects. And they have confirmed benefits for conditions like HIV. Did we cover that already? You've already said, how is it confirmed to help HIV?
Well, okay, so in the very beginning, Carrington Labs, when they were seeking drug approval in the late 80s, when they got their first use patent that said it would be effective in the treatment of any condition that required immune system intervention, they said, okay, so let's test that. What is the most severe issue in health going on in the world today? And in the late 80s, it was AIDS. There was no treatment. And so they did a small AIDS trial and showed dramatic improvement in the patients. And then Dr. Jasbir Cologne, who was with the NIH, National Institutes of Health, did a cell line culture and showed that Ace Mannon's effect on the immune system would stop the progression of the AIDS virus. And so, and again, Ace Mannon doesn't attack cancer. It doesn't attack AIDS. It doesn't attack autoimmunity. It optimizes your immune system's response to all of those things. And again, if you can optimize your immune system's response, your body can basically heal itself. And the question is, from what? And we haven't found anything that it can't heal itself from, if the immune system is functioning at a level that allows it to do that. So that's where the AIDS research came.
And you triggered a few thoughts here. We found that we could help almost anybody, except if they came to us too late.
Mm-hmm.
There were cases where people came too late. So people ask, like, how long should I take something like this? Because they're thinking like it's a drug. Like, if I feel a sickness, then I take it. If I don't feel sick, then I don't take it.
Right.
And I had to educate people and say, wait, you're coming from a sickness paradigm. You've got to think of your body as made of cells, and cells are made of food, and whatever you put in is going to create those cells. So for as long as you have an immune system, you want to be supporting it.
Right.
And that's how we took it. And I thought prevention's better than cure. You just take it over the long haul. You're going to get stronger and better. And then your response to any challenge, any enemy to your physical body is going to be much better. But that's just...
80% of the people in the world today, 70 to 80, live with one or more chronic conditions. So it's not like you have to go very far to find that, people have suppressed immune systems, the processed food that we eat, the stress that we're under, the toxicity levels that exist in society today. All of those suppress your immune system. And so it's no wonder that so many people are living with chronic conditions. And so whether you're preventing or you're trying to enhance your immune system's response to whatever you're dealing with, that's why you take these on an ongoing basis the rest of your life.
I still have friends who say to me, nah, I don't need it. I just eat right and exercise.
Mm-hmm.
I eat right and exercise. And, you live long enough and you see marathon runners, guys who are so physically fit and lean, they drop dead at 40, 50, and people just get shocked. They wonder why, because they actually believe that eat right and exercise, and you don't need to do anything else. When now you got a new thing, even the frequencies, all the electronic gadgets, all of the cell towers that we live under, all of this is affecting people's health. So you want to be supporting, like, antioxidants will fight the natural oxidative stress of your body. You want to support your immune system. You want to support your endocrine system, your hormonal system.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this you can get in MPG in one place. Now that's just one ingredient. It also says, last thing is, it can also aid in wound healing. So cancer, HIV, wound healing. Then you've got arabinogalactin. Arabinogalactin, AG, especially from larch trees, shows promise for immune stimulation or modulation in humans. It activates natural killer cells, enhances gut bacteria, increases antibodies. It has studies show that it reduces the common cold incidence and improves vaccine responses. That's interesting. You'd think they would love that. You'd think that they would want to combine. Even the pharmaceutical products work better when your immune system is working better.
Yeah.
Tell us about arabinogalactin, one of the ingredients of Vericel.
Well, arabinogalactin is an extract from a tree bark. It's a larch tree. And it has a polysaccharide similar to what's in aloe vera, only it's made up of different sugars, predominantly arabinose and galactose. That's why it's called arabinogalactin. And those are two sugars that are necessary in cell-to-cell communication. So all of the polysaccharides that you'll find in the Vericel product, all are made of saccharides that are necessary for cell-to-cell communication. So that's why every one of them will sound similar in terms of its effect, because you're adding back into your diet, some of these unique glyconutrients that are required for your bodies to function appropriately.
It sounds to me like God has put one or two of these ingredients in various healing plants.
Yeah.
And our job is just to go discover these and see how they work together and what's the right combination of them. So we're kind of going through God's garden. The next one is fucoidan, Fucoidan, fucoidan. That's an ingredient in Vericel. Mm-hmm. What does that do?
Well, fucoidans come from seaweed. And again, it's another polysaccharide, primarily fucose, which again is one of the necessary glyconutrients for cell-to-cell communication.
And it's specifically brown seaweed. I noticed they ate brown seaweed in Iceland. Is that, where do you get this brown seaweed from?
I'm not sure where they resourced that from, MPG. I think it's Southeast Asia.
Right. So Asians love seaweed.
Yeah.
The Japanese live a long life and they consume seaweed, I think, every day.
Yeah, I think it's an undaria, is the name of the seaweed that it comes from, the fucoid.
I have heard that, Undaria. Okay, our scientists and doctors can look that up who are watching us. Very common. Now, this, for some reason, out of all the glyconutrients, this one got popularized, but N-acetyl-D-glucosamine is in Vericel. And glucosamine is a word that everybody hears about, but they're not fully educated that it's in the language of life. It's how the cells differentiate between friendly, healthy cells from unfriendly, unhealthy enemies. Tell us about glucosamine.
Yeah, your cells take glucosamine and put it into a structure called N-acetylated. So it's an acetylated structure made up of glucosamine. And again, that provides another one of the 8 glyconutrients that are necessary for proper cell-to-cell communication.
Okay. Another ingredient is gum arabic. And it says that is a prebiotic. Why do we need the gum arabic in the Vericel? What does that do?
Well, again, it provides more of the essential sugars that are necessary. It's another source of glyconutrient polysaccharides. Most of these polysaccharides they're carbohydrates. They're in the form of fiber. So one of the benefits that come from the ingestion of all of those is soluble fiber is a prebiotic in your gut. So prebiotic fibers are fermented. They produce friendly bacteria, so you have a more healthy microbiome, and they produce short-chain fatty acids. And then the individual saccharides or sugars are dispersed into the bloodstream so they can go to your cells, and your cells can make these glycan structures. So that's different gums have different polysaccharides that fall into the same category as glyconutrient-based polysaccharides.
You've just connected for me the whole story, because I never knew the connection that you hear people say they don't know about cell-to-cell communication, but they know the gut is 80% of your immune system, right? They'll say things like that.
So Hippocrates, the father of medicine, once said, all disease starts in the gut. And 2,500 years later and gazillions of dollars worth of research, guess what modern science has discovered? All disease starts in the gut. That's why 80% of your immune system is housed there.
Yeah. Wow. Hey, just as a closing remark, would you like to tell us in brief your story about why you follow the Lord, how you came to Christ?
Yeah, well, my wife and I came to the Lord when we were in our 30s. We weren't raised in church. And I think, we had been successful entrepreneurs, or I had been a successful entrepreneur in our household. And we just felt something was really missing in our lives. And it wasn't solved by being financially successful. And first, my wife gave her life to the Lord. She witnessed to me. And at some point, I just said, okay, Lord, there's something missing in my life. If you're real, make yourself known to me. Give me that peace that surpasses all understanding. And that's what happened to me when I was 38 years old.
Well, I'm so glad that the Lord is using your life. The Lord has brought you through some challenges, but now we're going to help the world with this. We've got an amazing solution. If you're interested in this, go to vegaslife.com/Vericel. You can try it out right away. Amazing. Thank you so much, Sam, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you, Steve. It's great seeing you again.
This Discover Truth podcast and the global outreach of Discover Ministries is listener supported. If this program has strengthened your faith, would you consider partnering with us? To learn more, connect with our worldwide church community, and find ongoing biblical teachings, go to discoverchurch.online. And if you need prayer, support, or would like to speak to our team, call us anytime at 855-8-LOOK-UP. Thank you for standing with us as we share biblical truth and prepare believers for the return of Jesus Christ.